But y'all know that Mayor Eric Adams over in New York was stripped of his power. I bet you didn't know that. I bet you didn't even know that they could be stripped of certain powers. That they could be stripped of certain powers throughout their administration. I bet y'all didn't even know that. All right, let's get to it. Make sure I hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications.
Political turf war after the city controller Brad Lander strips Mayor Adams of his emergency powers to approve contracts related to the migrant crisis.
Fox 5's Morgan McKay joins us now in studio. And Morgan, the mayor says that it's going to be hard to give migrants the services that they need.
He did, Stephen, Natasha. And Mayor Eric Adams' administration says that they need this capability to act quickly, especially with more migrants arriving every week. Just last week, more than 3,600 migrants arrived here in the city, a spike that we haven't seen in a while. The comptroller Brad Lander says this won't stop Adams from doing what needs to be done. It will just make sure taxpayer money is being spent appropriately.
There's just too many holes in the way that City Hall was using that blanket permission.
New York City Comptroller Brad Lander says that his office has stripped Mayor Eric Adams' emergency powers that allows him to make deals with contractors for migrant services without prior approval.
So the mayor ain't the mayor no more when the powers that be then decide that the mayor is not doing a good enough job of doing what mayors are supposed to do, basically, is what they're trying to tell you. The mayor is not the mayor when it comes to certain issues, and they could be. How many of y'all actually knew that they could be stripped of their Denver received 7,300 migrants? Senior, send that to my email, Anton Daniels 413@gmail.com. How many of y'all know that they could be stripped of their emergency powers? And that's one of the reasons why they call it a crisis. One of the reasons that they call it a crisis is because it allows for them to then be able to control what's happening out here in these streets, man. That's why they call it a crisis. All right? It gives them power, unchecked power to make decisions, to select contractors, to stand up certain sites and all of this other type of stuff. It allows for them to be able to do certain things that you otherwise would not be able to do. Let's continue. I'm going to read those super chats shortly.
To a series of missteps, saying that the mayor's office failed to report subcontractors in certain cases and at times was late in submitting contracts.
The $432 million .go contract with subcontractors that don't have the appropriate licenses for their security firms, in some cases paying hotels way above what we're paying others.
So he's basically saying, listen, one of the reasons, and I'm guessing that they have to have some level of justification as to why it is that they're stripping certain people of their powers. He's saying, look, the money that was going out, it just didn't make sense. The amount of money that we were sending out here to these streets, man, just did not make sense because we was paying hotel. So the hotel owners out here in New York was making a bag. The hotel owners was making the bag, and the city and you guys, the constituents, was the people that was paying for it because you were the ones that are the taxpayers. And so because they was making the bag, everybody getting paid and everybody is doing their thing legally because they have the ability to do so. And the taxpayers are the ones that's getting finessed as a result of it. I got it. Let's continue.
That blanket approval that's been letting them do whatever they want is not in the best interest of New Yorkers.
Now, how it worked before this was under the mayor's emergency powers, his administration could make a deal with an outside contractor for things such as laundry services for migrants or to rent a small to medium-sized hotel to house migrants. After that, the contract would get sent to the comptroller's office for final approval. However, now, with this clawback, this contract will first have to go to Lander's office for approval before the mayor's office can act. The mayor's administration says this is going to cause significant delays.
So basically what they're saying is that Eric Adams has a babysitter now. Instead of them going through the process, the comptroller was the one that then approved whatever the funding was after. So he really couldn't say no to whatever Eric Adams was doing over in New York as far as how they allocating funds and resources. If they wanted a contractor to do this, if they wanted a contractor to do that. But the comptroller was saying, hey, man, it's people with licenses. We paying people that ain't got no ability to be able to do the job. Money is flowing outside. Y'all paying hotels $1,000 a day per migrant family in order to be able to house these people, and it's way more than other hotels, and it's not making sense. It's not making sense. And so the comptroller said that you can decide or you can run it past us, and then we'll be able to tell you whether or not you can actually do it or not, if we like what your plan is or if it makes sense to us.
This is an emergency that requires
Does this
sometimes
happen?
emergency-
Can this happen in any other city? Is New York one of the only cities that have this level of oversight? Because I'm wondering why they haven't taken the powers back from some of these other cities, such as Denver and Chicago.
spending, and we don't know how many migrants Texas is going to send us or whoever else.
More than 3,600 migrants arrived in New York City just last week, and Adams officials worry that this spike in arrivals will only continue to grow. Adams took a jab at Landers, saying that he would have hoped Landers' trip to D.C. a few weeks ago to speak with federal leaders about the migrant crisis would have produced.
That is so nasty. Look at the streets of New York out here in these streets. Look at New York, y'all. This would never fly in Tokyo. That is nasty. That is filthy. This look like the Carter. Have y'all ever seen New Jack City? Y'all ever seen the Carter? This look like a homeless encampment. This look like the Carter. That is filthy. That is nasty. Good God Almighty. Is this what's happening in our American cities?
More results.
He went to D.C. 20 months later, and he came back with tying our hands. That's just sort of defies logic to me. So I'm a little disappointed that when he turned from D.C., he didn't come back with any real answers on this is a national problem.
So now Eric Adams is pointing back at the comp controller and all of the constituents, and they said, listen, we sent these people to D.C. to go and get some more money. And so, as usual, the same thing that happened in the last segment of the show is the same thing that's happening in this segment of the show. And that blame is just basically being passed. And Eric Adams is blaming it on them. And then they blaming it on Eric Adams. And then they also blaming it on the Biden administration. How far up does this go? How deep does it go and how far up does it go? I'm just curious. Everybody is blaming everybody and nobody is taking responsibility. And I'm just wondering, how deep does the rabbit hole go? Eric Adams is blaming them. They blaming Washington. Everybody else's fault. Nobody's taking responsibility, and everybody just doing what they want to do. And I suspect that the Biden administration just probably doesn't want to even have any kind of issues or problems whatsoever. And so as a result, the only people that's really going to have to take responsibility for it is the taxpayers.
Now, Mayor Adams is also headed to D.C. on Thursday. Adams wouldn't give too many details on his upcoming trip, but did admit he still hasn't spoken with the president since late last year.
And Biden don't even said, I'm blocking you. Biden blocked Adams and said, don't call my phone, don't call my office, do not pass go, do not take $200, don't do nothing. Hey, when the mayor of literally the most powerful city in the United States of America cannot even tap into the president of the United States of America, New York generates more revenue, has more real estate, pays more taxes than any other city in the United States of America. And they can't even get in touch with Biden, that also advocated for and then allowed for him to even be able to win the election. If you don't win New York, I don't know how you can win the election when they have not even talked to you since they got back into office. That is a problem. And so the question that we have to ask ourselves is, do we put this at the steps of the White House, or do we put this at the steps of the mayors? New York can't even get in touch with Biden and them. He don't even see y'all. Somebody said it in the chat. Said they left him on red. Biden said, you can't even call my phone, Eric. He don't even call him Mr. Adams. He don't call him Eric Adams. No respect for New York whatsoever. He said, you can't even call my phone. Don't y'all know that one of the former governors of Michigan is now like one of the cabinet members or the head of energy crisis or something like that. Granholm is a part of, I believe, the Biden administration. Let me double check. What is Granholm's job? They largely consider Governor Granholm one of the worst governors of Michigan. She actually presided over the state when we lost all of those jobs in the auto industry, and then Detroit wound up having to file for bankruptcy. Granholm job. Jennifer Granholm is currently the United States Secretary of Energy since 2001. She was the governor of Michigan from 2003 through 2011. That is the worst part. That was the worst stretch. The worst stretch that we've had in Detroit and in Michigan. I mean, you had the Flint water crisis. You had the city filing for bankruptcy. You had leaving of jobs, hundreds of thousands of jobs, the UAW and all of this other types of. UAW is the ones that endorsed her. And she was the Michigan Attorney General from 1999 through 2003. And she was the governor of Michigan from 2003 through 2011. And she recently took a job in the United States Secretary as the United States Secretary of Energy in 2021. And Eric Adams can't even call his phone. He said, don't even call my phone. Yo, this is wild. I love politics. It is one of the most corrupt places to ever have a conversation about, which makes it even more entertaining. And we see that it all comes back down to the money.